Oh, okay.
It's very convenient for you.
It is. It's helpful. Okay, so just start by telling me how you got started in higher education.
I would say I got into higher ed kind of by accident. And I don't know if that's been a common theme you've been hearing about, but I had a job in one of the multicultural centers my sophomore or my senior year, and I just really liked working there. Mm-hmm. And one of my bosses had even talked to me about, hey, why don't you consider a career in student affairs? Well, why don't I think about it? And it's something I'm still thinking about, like I'm on the fence, but I found just overall working in higher ed to be a very supportive and nurturing environment. Mm-hmm. And I think it's why I've stayed in it so long, even though I took a brief detour and then I came back.
Nice. Mm-hmm. So this boss of yours in student affairs,
yeah.
Talk to me about your relationship with them.
I'm sad to say I'm not in touch with her anymore, though we are LinkedIn friends. But at the time, she was just very supportive, and she was also a young boss, also a woman of color. She's also HAPA, she was also queer, so she hit a lot of the different intersections of identity. I just remember at the time, she's like, you're very good with the other students, like, you would be great for this. And so she and the department also paid for me to go to like a NASPA or ACPA conference. I don't remember which one anymore, but yeah, it was just nice to have somebody that was so supportive and like a mentor, basically. Yeah. So I feel bad that we fell out of touch, but she was very formative, like in my early years.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you saw her as a mentor in your undergrad career?
Yeah.
Yeah. You said she was a woman of color. Do you remember what her...
She's half white, half Japanese.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. And did you have a lot of other mentors or people that you looked up to in your undergraduate career?
It's interesting. Like we had a career matching program or career mentor program where they did pair us up with, oh, you think you might go into teaching? Here, we'll pair you up with an APA teacher. Mm-hmm. So I had mentors in that more traditional formalized context, but I also didn't sustain those relationships beyond undergrad. Mm-hmm. And none of them were Filipino.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So then talk to me about your degree and graduating. Like, what did you finish your degree in, and what did you do after?
Oh, we never talked about this, huh? Okay, well, I had a double major in undergrad, majored in math and also American Studies.
Okay.
So those are two very different things.
Yeah.
I briefly entertained the thought of becoming a math teacher. I really liked math, so I was thinking about getting credentialed. And then with the American Studies, that allowed me to take more like classes in other disciplines, and I was also thinking about Asian Am more going forward. So not surprisingly, right after that, when I graduated, the economy was kind of bad. So I decided, why don't I go to grad school? Mm-hmm. So I did my master's in Asian Am.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And was that in 2008? Or when did you do your master's?
I did it right after undergrad, 2003.
Okay.
Through 2005, so a while ago. But then I went through the program, and it was good, and then I decided to go a completely different tack again. I don't know if that was the next question, or if you want me to keep going. Okay.
Yeah.
I was in a relationship at the time. I was finishing up grad school, and he's based in Boston. So I had decided, you know what, I want to move out of state. So I moved all the way to Massachusetts.
Wow.
And then I started as a temp at Harvard Business School. And they took me on full time, and I stayed there for 6 years.
Doing what?
I was a program coordinator. So I coordinated a program for a faculty member. And he had his own institute, so like research support staff and admin staff, and we were running his programs and helping him with his classes.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
And you did that for 6 years?
Uh-huh.
What was the rationale for saying, all right, I'm ready to leave and go? Because I imagine you grew up here in San Diego. Mm-hmm. So that's like literally the opposite end of the country. So what were some of the things that you were considering or the factors that influenced your decision to make the cross-country trek?
The relationship was definitely one of them, but I've also had a bit of wanderlust like my whole life, and I think it's important to grow as a person. Sometimes you need to leave the things that you're really comfortable with. So I was like, well, this is my opportunity, and I have always wanted to live out of state. So one of my regrets about college is that I didn't go farther away, because I did both my undergrad and my grad studies at schools in LA. So I was like, it's time to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what was that like to move across the country?
It was scary, Grace. It was scary and overwhelming, and especially the first couple of months, I was like, what am I doing? And to move from a place like San Diego, where there's like a built-in Filipino community, all my relatives are here, a lot of my friends are here, to move out there where I'm not going to say it's more homogenous, but certainly it felt that way. And even though there were other Asians, they were mostly Chinese or Vietnamese, so I definitely felt like a fish out of water. So it was hard.
Yeah.
Like really difficult.
Yeah.
But I grew to like it there, and there's advantages to living in that part of the country too. Yeah.
And I mean, speaking of like some of the advantages, like what was it about this particular position that made you stay for 6 years? Because that's a long time.
Well, you know how we were talking about benefits.
Yes.
Harvard is a large enough institution and clearly well established. They had really great employee benefits. Also, I was unionized, so that was interesting to be under a bargaining agreement. But yeah, the vacation was even more generous than it is here. And I also knew I was paying lower taxes living out there. And just also I felt rewarded for my contributions at that institute because I kept moving up. Like I got a promotion about halfway through.
Okay.
With a big salary increase. So I'll stay for a while longer. Yeah.
What was a promotion to?
So I went from being a staff assistant to a program coordinator.
Okay. And the temporary position, was that the staff... Was that a staff position as well? Because you said you came in temporary and then got a permanent position, or is that a completely different position?
That was different. Like I was brought on to work on a manuscript that the professor was writing at the time.
Okay.
And so I had done the temp thing for like 3 months, and I think a lot of it was also luck and timing, because he had just wrapped up the book, and then they liked me, so they asked, "Do you want to stay? Like we can create more work for you." Okay, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's when they created this...
The staff assistant role.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you did that for how long?
That I did for about 2 years before I moved into the program coordinator role.
Same boss that said, we want to give you this new opportunity. Did you have to interview or apply for that, or was that just a internal promotion?
Internal promotion.
That's great.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so then in that position, you're there in Boston, away from family. Yeah, you're there with your partner. Like, talk to me about why then did you leave? Why stop? Or did you want to keep going, or what was going on?
I would say maybe the last 2 years of my job there, I was really unhappy. Just the work became very repetitive, and that environment, it's a business school. It's a lot more competitive and cutthroat. And even the faculty person I worked under, even though I really appreciated the opportunity I had to like move up and I learned a lot of things, he was a very difficult man to work for. And so there was always kind of like a cloud of darkness overshadowing that place, because people would come and go. Like the retention was poor. And so yeah, the last 2 years were really hard. I had tried to move within the university without telling my boss, but I think they caught wind of it and they blocked me from moving. So that was a really frustrating experience.
Who do you think blocked you?
It's probably something I wasn't supposed to know, but the other department I had interviewed with, I guess there was one person on the selection committee that was really pushing for me. And then there were others that were kind of on the fence, and that's fine. But she took the time to meet with me later to tell me, by the way, like, I wanted you and some other people wanted you, but we heard, like, you couldn't move or they didn't want you to move. So
Interesting.
I got to hear about it from the back end.
Interesting.
So that was kind of like the final straw for me. Like, I have to go. So I walked away from that job eventually. And just also the timing of that, I think it had an impact on my relationship. So my relationship was also coming to an end at the time I left this job. And then eventually it was like, well, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm coming back to San Diego, which was always the plan anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so interesting.
And I realized I was privy to information I wouldn't
right.
normally have access to, so it's really nice that that woman reached out to me and let me know, hey, this is happening on the back end, just so you know, if you try to move elsewhere within the university. So it was crazy.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Talk to me about this faculty member. Like, what was that? What was that like to work for this person? And
looking back, it was kind of like an otherworldly experience because he's a very rich man. He flies in private planes. He gets paid like in the six figures to give special talks.
Wow.
He's like friends with presidents of other countries because he's a strategy advisor. That's his background. And we had Secret Service in the office too when presidents of like countries like Finland or Rwanda would come to campus. So looking back, to be able to kind of hobnob with that kind of person is kind of not an experience I'll ever have again.
Yeah.
But then, like I told you, he's also very difficult to work for. So he's like a very powerful white male, older, established, and every once in a while he would also make like off-color remarks.
Like what?
Well, he did a lot of work, I think, with Korea. You could just imagine the kind of things he might say about like North Korea being communist and things like that. So sometimes things would be of that nature, but most of the time he was politically correct.
Was any of that you directed at you?
Never at me.
Okay.
But it just made me uncomfortable that he would say things like that.
Right.
You know, it's like, okay, what's he saying about other people behind their backs?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So, clearly they're not student affairs professionals. It's a business school, so.
Yeah.
They're very different.
Yeah, they are very different. And so working on the academic affairs side, what was that like?
Faculty are very needy, Grace.
Oh.
They're very yeah, I've found that it's a lot easier to work with staff than with faculty. So I appreciate my current role that I have to interact more with staff.
Yeah.
Because those faculty needed a lot of hand-holding. And, you know, if they need something done, they need it done like 5 minutes ago. So.
All right, so you decided, okay, you're done with this job and this personal relationship that you're in is ending. Why not stay in Boston, or why not explore other places? Why come back home?
It was always my end game to come back home. If I had ended up married to that ex-partner of mine, he was supposed to move back here with me. So, and that was my one thing, like, okay, he's not going to live up to that, and I wanted to live in Massachusetts because he was there. I was really homesick, especially the last year, and it was just, the relationship ending and leaving the job were like the two impetuses to get me to move back. Yeah. And I just really had no interest in staying there. Done with the snow, done with the weather, done with all of it. I missed Filipino food. It was time to come home.
Yeah. So what did you do? Did you apply first, or did you just move back home? And
I sucked it up, Grace. I moved back home and in with my parents.
You did?
I wanted to kill myself half the time, and I'm not even saying that lightly, but yeah, I always knew that was an avenue for me to move back in with my parents. And you know how Filipino parents are. Like, stay with us, save up money for a down payment before you move out. I'm 30 plus years old. I don't want to live here until I'm 40. You crazy? So yeah, I went on to live with them for almost 2 years, like a year and a half. And then I needed about like a month to just get settled back in, cry my eyes out, and just get adjusted. And then maybe a month after I got back, I started applying for jobs. And then, I was employed again within 6 months of moving back, maybe 5 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what kind of jobs were you looking for at that time?
At that time, I was looking for kind of more of the same, like more program coordination, not so much executive assistant jobs. So it's kind of funny that that's what I landed in.
Yeah.
But one of the jobs I ended up at here, my very first job back in San Diego, I had applied for a program coordinator job, but when I went into interview, it was with 3 different people, and they were all hiring assistants. So they were like, by the way, you applied for this one job, but we would like to consider you for all 3.
Wow.
I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, so I guess the provost really liked me, and so that's the job they offered to me, and he seemed fine. So, okay, I'll take the job.
Yeah.
I needed a job at that point. I had been unemployed for a while.
Yeah.
So,
okay, so what was it about then, like, if you wanted a program coordinator job, but and deciding that you were going to take this administrative position, like what were some of the thoughts or the things that you were factoring in when you were saying, like, all right, I'm gonna make this decision to compromise on the position that I was looking for to do assistant?
I think a lot of it is timing, Grace. So at that point, I had been unemployed for almost a year.
Okay.
I was also going stir crazy from being at home with my parents, so it's financially challenging. And then my hope was that even though that school was very small, their student enrollment is only around 400 to 600 at any given time.
Oh, that's really small.
It's a very small school, yeah. It's like maybe I can move around again like I did at Harvard, and I just have to get my foot in the door somewhere and like move around again. So it's like, okay, hopefully I won't get stuck in that track. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so then how long did you stay in that position?
I originally intended to stay in that job certainly longer than the 11 months I was there.
Okay.
But there were a lot of other things going on at the time that I had to get out of there.
Like what?
A lot of other people were leaving.
Okay.
In the 11 months I was there, almost 20 people left on staff.
Wow.
Including a lot of, colleagues I was close to. And a lot of that has to do with the leadership of the school, and it's a for-profit.
Okay.
So that's just a very different environment from here, from Harvard. And it just wasn't a good fit. And I knew that if I stayed behind, it would be bad for me. And also my boss left, the provost.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
He was one of the 20 plus that left.
Yeah. And we had also gone through accreditation and for 2 different things, and that was crazy. Like, I worked 12 hours in one day. My paycheck looked good, but I worked 12 hours in one day, Grace.
Wow.
Yeah. So it just wasn't a good environment.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you leave that job.
Didn't even make it a year. Oh, gosh.
And then what?
Okay, so at that point, after kind of 2 bad experiences in higher ed, I was like, maybe I should try something different. And this is not to say that I was completely excluding higher ed, because I also applied for other jobs at other schools. Like I had interviewed at Grossmont, I'd interviewed at UCSD.
For what type of positions?
I was trying to, some were more admin and some were more program coordination.
Okay.
Still admin, but it's different. But then I'd also decided, well, maybe I can try to use my H&M degree. So just through the community network, like from my grad school, I heard about this job opening up in LA.
Okay.
But it was for like a San Diego recruiter. So I'm okay, like maybe I could do this. So I applied to the job on a lark.
Okay.
And interviewed, and they offered it to me, and it was a big salary cut. But I mean, I've kind of hinted to you, like, it was a really bad environment, and I was in a bad headspace at my then job.
Yeah.
So I decided, okay, I'll try something different, and I'll try recruitment for this nonprofit in Little Tokyo.
So, that's cool.
It's different.
But you were recruiting here in San Diego. but working for a company that was in LA.
So I was working remotely, and then I would go up to LA maybe twice a month.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what was that like?
I did not like that, Grace. It was like sales. So challenging. So even though it was good work, like trying to recruit, I don't know if I've told you about this job, but I was recruiting bone marrow donors for Be The Match.
Oh.
Through, A3M, Asians for Miracle Marrow matches. They work under Be The Match, and I was supposed to be recruiting Filipino donors. Oh, Filipinos were terrible.
Oh, no.
We do not like needles and donating blood, so I think that job I was set up to fail from the start. It's like our community was very resistant to it. And I knew that going in, just the reality of it was really bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can imagine. That would be really difficult. How long did you stay doing that?
And that job I did for about a year.
Okay. And then what? What was your decision at that point to be like, okay, I'm over this, I'm done?
I was like, really? I'm looking for another job. Our ED left. He was forced to leave.
Oh, interesting.
And then I had also just the frustration of trying to recruit within our community, even though it was for a good purpose. It's like, I can't do this. Like, I feel like a failure. And also I need to make more money again. So it was all those things together.
Yeah.
It's like, I gotta go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So you leave that job.
Yeah.
And then what? What are you doing?
So when I was deciding to leave that job and thinking about what to do next, I'm like, I guess I will go back into hiring. It worked for me in the past. So I had interviewed for a couple of different jobs here before this one landed. And then I was also interviewing at UCSD. And then I was about to get an interview at Southwestern College, but I took the job here first. So,
okay. What positions were they for?
There was like an education coordinator role at Southwestern. Looking back, I wish I'd had the opportunity to interview first before I had to decide. Because it was administrative, but kind of like running a center.
Yeah.
And then at UCSD, it would have been in academic affairs, but more of an executive or admin assistant role. To like an assistant vice chancellor or something.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
But you came to San Diego, University of San Diego. What was it about this job that made you say, like, all right, I'm going to stop here and take this one?
Well, let's see. So, I said I interviewed for a couple jobs here. Like, I tried for a job at the business school, and that fell through. And actually, another job that I interviewed for within student affairs was at the UF. And Blau Student Affairs has a rigorous interview schedule. This is like murderous. So I didn't get that, and that's fine. For this job, Cynthia actually asked me to interview for it. Like, she remembered me from when I interviewed at the UF and asked if I would like to consider applying for this job. So I was like, wow, she remembers me. I'm like, that's kind of unusual that someone would ask you. Might as well interview.
Yeah.
And then I saw the interview schedule. It wasn't all day, it was half a day. I'm like, that's reasonable. I just really like the people that I interviewed with here. Yeah. It's a good office, as you know. Even though it's funny, the day I interviewed, Donald wasn't here, Ricky was out, and then Margaret was out.
Oh, wow.
So
it's like half the office.
I know, like, does that mean I have to come back and interview? I think I just had to interview with Margaret on the phone, and she sounded really nice. So, okay, I think USD might edge out UCSD in this case. And also, the timelines were kind of out of sync. Like, I would have had to wait longer with UCSD to see if I would advance. So, but then I found out later, the person on that search committee was like, you would have moved on to our next stage, the final stage. Like, dang it.
Oh. So how does that make you feel, like, knowing that, like, you could have potentially had, do you have regrets about taking this role?
I don't have regrets about taking this role, but I think I would have like to have made a more informed choice.
Mm-hmm.
I know I interview well since I have the opportunity to interview at a lot of other places. So I just wish the timing had been better. But I don't regret coming here. Yeah.
So then what's the next steps, or like what are the career aspirations moving forward?
Well, Grace, I don't want to be an EA forever. In terms of what to do next, I'm still figuring that out.
Yeah.
I'm taking project management courses right now, the
Okay.
PCE.
Yeah.
So I'm about halfway through that program, and it's nice because the division paid for the classes.
Wow. That's a great benefit.
This is a beautiful place to work for multiple reasons. So I would like to kind of move back into more program coordination and not be a slave to other people's calendars, basically. I know I'm very organized and I'm good at planning things, so I should probably play to those strengths moving forward. Yeah, but we'll see where I end up.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's someplace within here.
Okay. So here, you want to stay here at USD?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, if possible.
Yeah.
But that doesn't rule out looking at other things eventually.
Right. So, thinking back, right, to when you started, or even before, right, as an undergrad, you obviously, you were involved in student affairs, you know, you were getting your higher education degree. Like, are you satisfied with the career choice that you made?
Sometimes I wish I had gone into a more traditional discipline. My brother is an engineer, and it seems like his career path is a lot more linear than mine, whereas I feel like I'm bouncing all over the place. And, you know, it's difficult not to compare yourself to your relatives or your peers, or, you know, then you get family members who say things like, "You're so smart, why didn't you do something else, like become a doctor?" It's like, I don't like blood very much, so... Yeah, so do I have regrets? I mean, I don't think so, because those experiences shape who I am today.
Sure.
You know, and I don't regret living in Massachusetts. I also spent time in the Philippines, and like I studied Tagalog, and I don't think I would have arrived at those places if I didn't go to UCLA, the Asian Am thing. So I'm sure in the end it will have all been worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. So what is it about, or talk to me about your family and the family dynamics or influence they might have had on your career, or not?
I think I've told you in other conversations I have a big extended family. So my mom is the oldest of 9. And for a while we all lived in the same house. So it's like my parents, my brother, me, my maternal grandparents, and 6 of my mom's brothers and sisters in a tiny 1,100 square foot house.
Wow.
So I'm still very close to my mom's side of the family, and they've just, overall, they've been a great blessing and influence in my life. But being very close to family also comes with expectations. So I'm not trying to sound braggy, but I know I am one of the smarter, if not the smartest, first cousin among that set of cousins, and my family has always had very high expectations for me. So I'm sure they wonder sometimes, like, why I didn't go into a higher paying profession, why I didn't try to go to med school and things like that. I'm like, well, I don't have to do what you think I should do. I have to do what makes me happy at the end of the day.
Yeah. Do your parents understand, like, what your career is?
I don't think they do. It's tough to explain it to them, too. Like, I just really like higher ed, and they're like, "Well, what do you do?" I'm like, "I'm an admin." They're like, "But what does an admin do?" I'm like, "I don't know. Like, I've tried to tell you this, and you never listen." It's a little frustrating having that conversation with them, but they just know I work for a university, and we leave the conversation at that.
Are they, I mean, have they been supportive, at least, of your decision to stay in a career in higher education?
I don't think they've been unsupportive, let's put it that way. Like, they were wondering about when I made the leap into E3M and being a recruiter, so they understood when I left that job. But they seem supportive of higher ed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think my mom is attached to the appeal and, the reputation of Harvard. Because even though my relationship ended a long time ago, she's like, I don't know why you didn't stay in Boston and try to find another job at Harvard or, stay there. I'm like, Mom, I've told you I had a hard time moving within the school.
Yeah.
I probably would have had to move schools. She's like, well, I think you should have stayed. I'm like, well, I don't think so. So I'm back.
And that was more of the prestige then, do you think, or?
I think that's part of it, but also she was secretly wishing I would get back together with my then partner. And that was not going to happen. Yeah.
Well, and moms have a way of, underlying telling you what they want.
It's like, nope. Not happening. Yeah.
How has being here at USD shaped or influenced your decision to stay in higher education? What is it about this institution that you want to stay here?
When I first got here, it felt a little bit Stepford Wivesy-like. Just that, and then maybe just the nature of the division of student affairs, that everyone was so welcoming and nice, but I guess I eventually towed the party line. And I don't regret that. I don't mean that as a bad thing, but I just love, that it's so nurturing here.
Yeah.
And I've met a lot of the other Filipino staff on campus. Guess they know how to find you. And they've been very nice, and what I found interesting is that a lot of us are in admin positions. I'm like, what is that about? So that doesn't always sit well with me, but I do like that they're very nice and welcoming. Yeah.
So, based off of like who you know and the that are working here, why do you think? I'm just curious. Maybe you don't know this answer, but like, why do you think there is such a supportive community for Filipinos that work here at USD?
A lot of the ones I've met are immigrants too, so I think it's just maybe they're also reaching out to others that look like them or like-minded or have a similar experience, because you look around, it's a very wide environment.
That's right.
So I think that's part of it. Like, I'm here for you. Like, I can relate to you, identify with your culture. Let's celebrate it. So I think that's part of the support. There could be other underlying issues. I don't know.
Yeah. Definitely finding that like sense of community, especially when you're maybe minoritized or like definitely a smaller number. Representing a smaller number of people here.
It's just I kind of find it interesting, Grace. Like, do other people of color have similar communities around campus, like, among the staff anyway? Like, I find that very curious about Filipinos. Like, why do we have parties anyway? Like, just wondering about it.
Yeah. I'd be curious to know about that too, and whether that is something that's specifically related to being Filipino and our culture, or if there's other reasons for that.
I mean, at Harvard, it kind of entertained me, like, after I got hired on full-time. So the tech guy that came by to install my computer, he takes one look at me. He's like, are you Filipino? And I'm like, yes. And I was looking at him, like, trying to gauge, are you? But I just decided to ask it. Because you're going to ask me that, I'm going to ask you what you are. He's like, oh, I'm Filipino too. He's like, I know I don't look it. I'm mixed, but I'm Filipino. He's like, and my mom works on campus. So... So the whole time I was there, it was nice to see him because we talk about stuff.
Yeah.
Sometimes being Filipino and then other things.
Yeah.
Super random.
Yeah.
So I did not expect to meet another Filipino at the business. Yeah. We look for each other, so maybe it has something to do with culture.
Yeah.
I think. But we did not have parties over there. Also because I don't think there were enough of us to have parties.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Is there anyone that you would say would be a major influence or a factor in your career in higher education? A person?
I don't think I can attribute that to any one person.
Yeah.
I mean, there's been a lot of supportive people along the way. Majority of them have been women.
Okay.
Though the provost that I supported, he was male and white, but he's also an immigrant. Mm-hmm. So I felt that he was a lot more understanding than some of the other white men I've encountered.
Mm-hmm.
In my career so far.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And you said that the professor that you work for at Harvard initially was very supportive and wanted to promote you. Is that right? Or
I don't know that the idea came from him.
I see.
I worked with him, but not directly under him.
Mm-hmm.
I had a different manager who often acted as like the go-between.
Mm-hmm.
And they were more supportive of my moving around. So for all I know, he could have been the one that blocked me ultimately from moving elsewhere within the university.
I see. Okay. What about any other factors that you think played a bigger role in helping you make a decision about your career? Were there any other factors, or because I heard you say that your own like well-being or happiness in a position was a couple of reasons why you left some places, and then money was also a motivator, right? Needing to be receiving some type of financial compensation in order to survive or to live. Mm-hmm. But were there any other factors that may have influenced you in your decisions?
I think I've just always known that I wanted to do something having to do with education. Mm-hmm. Well, you know how you were asking about regrets earlier?
Yeah.
Sometimes I wonder how different my life would have been if I'd gotten a credential instead to teach.
Okay.
Like at the K through 12 level.
Yeah.
Because also when I was at both USC and UCLA, I took Filipino language classes.
Oh, uh-huh.
And my Filipino is pretty good, despite having grown up here.
Yeah.
Like I can carry on a conversation, I can write, I can read, I can sing in it. So I've had 2 Filipino professors at both schools that were like, why don't you think about teaching?
Yeah.
So that would have been a switch going from math to Filipino. And then, I don't know, I started at Harvard and then I just kind of went from there, sticking with like the more administrative roles.
Yeah.
But I don't know, sometimes I think about, well, what if I switched again and like really tried to go into teaching Filipino for real?
Yeah.
Get a credential. So yeah, I don't know, I always felt tethered to education. So yeah, besides the environment, the money is okay, but the benefits are really good.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And just the flexibility to being in higher ed.
Yeah.
It's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. There's definitely a different type of culture that exists in higher education.
It's so different from my friends who have corporate jobs. Like,
mm-hmm.
You seem very unhappy, like, all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's something different about. I wonder what that might be.
What's causing that?
Or yeah, what creates that environment where I think a lot of people are pretty happy in this field, especially at this university, and if it's just the benefits, if it's
I don't know, it might be the weather.
Yeah, well yeah, we are in San Diego.
I don't know what it is. Like, yeah, and I don't know if it's, because we're in student affairs too, just when people are like, I need to take a day off, like nobody questions you or gives you a hard time about it. And
yeah.
It's nice.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that does help, that kind of culture of like care and and people here go home at a decent hour. No one's here till the wee hours of the night or way early in the morning. So
I still see emails being sent in the wee hours, perhaps from home, but that means
Yes.
people are still working late at night.
yeah, but just not in
Yeah.
the office, and the expectation isn't to stay much past business hours
Yeah.
unless there's a major event, or I definitely feel like that that boundary is here.
I appreciate that because I think there should be a good balance between work and life.
Mm-hmm.
And I know the two mix, but sometimes it's good to keep a divide. Because your personal time is your own time.
That's right. What about talk to me about like where there might have been a significant like decision for you along this pipeline. Is there or this journey of yours, like is there something in this journey of yours thus far that you could say was a turning point, or a like aha, like this is significant in my trajectory of where I am today?
Probably between grad school and then moving out to Massachusetts. Part of the reason I had gone to grad school was I was also thinking of, okay, maybe if I don't become a K through 12 teacher, perhaps I could teach at community college or even at the university. But good Lord, academia is so cutthroat, as you probably know.
Yeah.
And just like talking to people who are postdocs or people who are aspiring faculty, and then seeing how long tenured faculty stay in their roles. It's like, I will not enjoy this. Like, I don't want to be competing in that, and for very limited positions too, like Asian Am. So I kind of knew at that point, probably won't be going that academic route. And I was still kind of thinking about K through 12 and like the whole Filipino thing or math. But I think just being in the rush of like a new relationship at that time, and then wanting to be out of California, it's like I have to go.
Yeah.
Because while I was in grad school, I spent both of the summers out of state. Like I spent one summer studying Filipino in Wisconsin, like doing an immersive language program.
In Wisconsin?
Yeah, they're big on like the Southeast Asian languages at the University of Wisconsin-Madison.
Oh.
So they have a summer institute there. You could learn like Laotian, you could learn Hmong. I had no idea it existed until I got to grad school. And then like the following summer, I was in the Philippines, like working at an NGO for a couple of weeks. So it's like, I'm going to be traveling. I knew that after grad school.
Yeah.
And not pursuing it academia.
Yeah. That's really cool. Why was learning the language so important?
I have a love of languages to start with, but I just wanted to be able, at the heart of it, I want to be able to communicate better with my grandparents growing up. And you know how I said, like, at one point there was 12 of us living under one roof.
Right.
My grandparents were there, and my aunts and uncles whose English wasn't very good at the time. So I think I just decided at a very young age, like around 7 or 8, like, well, I have all these teachers here that can teach me how to speak Filipino. And I know I made a lot of mistakes, and it's hard to learn a second language, you know, but they were really patient with me. And I think they liked seeing that I was so interested in the language, that they would talk to me and like correct me when I was wrong and teach me new words. It's just really inquisitive.
Yeah.
And so my Tagalog got progressively better. And then by the time I got to college, I'm like, oh, I can take a class in it too.
Yeah.
I learned how to write, so.
And then you just kept learning all through college.
Yeah. I wish there were more opportunities to take classes now, but I haven't looked into any, so that's partly my fault.
Yeah. Do you feel like you need to still take classes, or do you feel like you could be teaching classes?
Both. Like, I could teach beginning classes, you know, but I could definitely use more practice speaking it and, like, learning the deeper words or the more academic sounding terms. Yeah. So I practice with some of the other staff here when I have a chance. Yeah. Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Have you heard of the Filipino school?
I have.
Yeah.
I remember reading an article about it.
Yeah.
Is it doing well?
I think so. I'm not sure.
That might be too easy.
Uh-huh.
Language-wise.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Gotcha. No, I mean for you to teach in, though, right?
Oh, I hadn't even considered that.
Oh.
I was like, I don't know. Grace.
Just a thought. Is there anything else that you can think of that has happened, whether it's, I don't know, whether it was something personal that has happened in your life, or maybe something that was happening in history? Do you think there's any other influences or factors that have played into your decision to be in higher education?
Things that happened in history. I remember, it's kind of cool that you wrote 9/11 on like the sample thing, because when 9/11 happened, I was a junior at USC, undergrad, and that's when I was taking a lot of courses with the few Asian faculty we had at USC. None of them were Filipino. I was putting that out there. But I remember I was supposed to be in a poli-sci class. It was taught by a 6th generation Chinese American. And I think she still held class that day so we could talk about what happened with 9/11. And I just, well, I don't know that was so much about 9/11 as I was responding to, this is cool that, like, she's female, she's Chinese, she's teaching a class, we're engaging in open discussion. And then I had 2 more faculty that were also, like, very supportive and, like, very open classrooms. And they all wrote letters of rec for me to get into grad school. Though I just saw one of them on TV recently.
Oh, wow.
I was like, okay, he won a Pulitzer Prize.
Wow.
Proud of him. It's like, good for you.
Wow.
So I don't know if that was, like, so definitive, but it did play an influence.
Yeah.
But I would say more like the person I worked with at the Multicultural Center.
Yeah.
She was more of an influence.
Yeah.
So, and I think now she works in career placement.
Oh.
So, yeah. Maybe she's found her calling.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. What kind of other events are you getting at, Grace? Because I have to think about it.
Yeah. No, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if there's any other things that have happened, like, personally or in your family dynamics. Anything related to personal relationships or even professional ones. I mean, those can have an influence or an impact too. So I don't know if there's anything else that's been going on in your life that maybe has played a role in your decision to stay in this career field or return or whatever, whatever along your pipeline or your timeline.
Yeah. I don't know, like, talking to you makes me wonder, if I should reconsider the whole teaching route. I guess I've always been when I was a kid, I used to take music lessons, so I did the whole band thing for, like, 3rd through 8th grade.
Yeah.
And I picked up a lot of instruments, like, really fast. And so my music teacher at the time was like, why don't you tutor other kids? Like, give music lessons and you can charge people. And I'm like, I can charge people? Sweet. I'm all about it. So, here I am, like, I'm 11 and I'm teaching, like, other 11, 10, 9-year-olds, like, how to play this and that.
Yeah.
So that's when I first started teaching. And then I'm thinking, when I went into grad school, like, I did the whole TA thing for a quarter. But I also worked as a tutor to make money on the side, and I think I was a good tutor. I had a lot of clients. I went through an agency, and they learned and did well on their exams, so I don't know why I didn't go into teaching.
Yeah, or even just tutoring or one-on-one guidance. It sounds like that's something that you've done already in the past.
Yeah, I don't know, Grace. Sometimes you fall into a career and it's what's most convenient or easiest and what you know. So, not to say I'm in a rut, but it's what I know right now.
Yeah.
So, I'm looking to get out of it eventually. We'll just see.
Yeah.
Maybe I should revisit some past things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And my family knows I jump around a lot. Like, my mom has said, you cannot stay in any one place. And I'm like, I know, I'm sorry, but...
Why do you think that is?
I'm not Sometimes I feel like I'm on the quest to find eternal happiness, but I think I'm the kind of person where I just need change.
Okay.
Every so often, and I don't know why I get bored.
Is it boredom that why you move, or?
Sometimes that's part of it, because like I said, some jobs, I mean, all jobs have repetition, including the one I'm in now, and that's part of it. But I like a challenge too, like learning new things, and so that's partly why I move around from institution to institution.
Right.
Yeah. But this is actually a very good place to work, so I wouldn't mind landing here for a while.
So what would you say would be things that would challenge you, or what would be some of the new things that you would want to learn if you could stay here?
I have always liked technology too, so I like going to like the trainings ITS has, or volunteering to learn a new software, or what shortcuts can I use. So I'm not saying I want to work in ITS. I don't think I want to work in ITS, but I'd like a job that uses more of like, the technology we do have available. And just, maybe something that's just not related to scheduling, because I could do that in my sleep now. I hate it sometimes, but I know I'm good at it too, and the cats need to be herded.
That's right.
They need to be herded.
Yeah.
Or even a job where I use Excel more, because there's a lot of stuff in Excel.
Yeah. So I guess more now I'm curious about your aspirations, because now this, like, listening to you talk about, like, there's teaching in your history, you have this desire to like work with software and technology and Excel, like, it's making me think, like, what position or where is that in higher education?
I have no idea, Grace. I know, like, can I also speak Filipino while I'm at it? Is that too much to ask? Probably at a place like USD. I mean, like I said, I want to kind of get away from the traditional administrative assistant job and just maybe push myself out there more. And I don't know what kind of role that would look like.
Yeah.
Or if it even exists, or if I could try to create it somehow. But I would love to speak Filipino at a job. It would force me to get better. I don't think there's a place for that here. So I don't know what that might look like.
Yeah.
I also took a linguistics class in college that I really loved, but I never really considered that as a major. But looking back, that might have been fun too. So,
That's really cool.
I'm kind of all over the place.
But you also are, but not, like I hear that you've really stayed in a lane, and part of that is also wanting to get out of that lane a little bit, because you have been in that more administrative support role, and what that might mean for you to expand your experience and the work that you're doing in higher ed.
I just know that here at USD, in terms of the administrative progression, I'm an EA2, and I think the next step from EA2 is like Ricky's role, special assistant to someone, and I know that's a salaried job, so they get like the 24 days a year. I just don't know that I want to be doing that, and there are only so many VPs, so that's a little bit depressing. I'm kind of maxed out in this role. Like, I could only move on to other EA2 jobs. And then, like I mentioned earlier, it's kind of interesting to see a lot of other Filipinos in administrative roles here. I'm like, are these people trying to move to other roles? Have they been blocked? I mean, or do they really like their jobs and that's why they stay? And I imagine it's a combination of both, but then it makes me wonder if there is a glass ceiling of sorts on campus. So
Yeah.
It's just something I've observed.
Well, and it can be seen, and you know, like you look at who the VPs are or who the president is at this campus, and they're not Filipino, they're not Asian, so.
I like that Chris Naive is in his role,
Right.
and it's like a pretty senior role. I'm all, that's cool. Like,
Yeah.
we're moving around a little bit. So.
Yeah.
But he's the most senior person I've been aware of that's of Filipino heritage on campus. It's like, okay.
Yeah, it's a male.
Yes.
Right? So,
yeah.
that's another factor, right? When I imagine that probably most of the people in the group
Are women, immigrants. Yeah. But when I get together with them, we don't really talk career aspirations. Like, I know one of them is a senior program coordinator at the business school, and she's probably the most senior person I've seen within that group.
Okay.
I want to pick her brain at some point about some other stuff. So.
All right. Interesting. Well, is there anything that you think you want to add that I haven't asked you about in your career?
When I was doing the mapping exercise and thinking about, what kind of student affairs-y type things have I done in the past, it's like, wow, I did a lot of that in undergrad. So it's kind of weird that I didn't end up in that route, but I'm sure it was for a reason. Because, so APAS stands for Asian Pacific American Student Services. And even though USC is a much larger campus and very diverse, I still felt drawn to the other Asian students, like having to look out for them.
Right.
And looking back, and I'm sure that their programming has changed now, like it was good to be a part of their network and participate in their programs. And I also worked in the office. That was a good experience. And I don't know why I didn't think more seriously about student affairs either, but I don't know, Grace.
Well, and your career's not over.
It's not.
Yeah.
I don't think, though, I'm a student affairs professional. I was talking to somebody about this, and he's like, he also works in student affairs, but elsewhere. He's like, I'm an admin professional who happens to work in student affairs. And so I kind of might agree with you for that for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then I don't want to be an admin forever, so I really don't know where I'm going after this.
Yeah. That's okay. I mean, you don't really need to know. At some point, you will probably need to figure it out.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to hear about your journey at that point when you start to make that decision of what's next. Are there things that you are, that if you do make a shift from this position, almost like, these are what I've learned that I need to have, or the wants, I guess, of the next step?
I would love a job where I had more autonomy and more decision making, like more control over my immediate work versus being delegated things. And I would just love a job where I don't have to look at calendars for so much of the day.
Yeah.
So I think I have more of an idea of what I do not want.
Okay.
But I don't know how that's going to inform what I do want.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
Good thing you don't need to have that, figured out and mapped out right now.
I don't think I'll ever have it figured out, Grace. Like, it'll just be more like, have you thought about this? Try that.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, it sounds like that's how a lot of your moves in your careers have happened, right? Somebody else has said, hey, why don't you apply for this job, or have you considered this role, or...
It's flattering too to be considered for many things at once.
Yeah.
But then I have a hard time making decisions sometimes, and that is hard being put in that role. Like, here, by the way, you have to decide between these three, or this is what you're being presented now. Do you want to take it now or wait for something better to come along?
And what do you think are the factors to determine that? Like,
wait for something better to come along?
Yeah.
A lot of it is financial. Like, I need a job now.
Right.
And also maybe I could be a little bit impatient about those kind of things. Like, I just have to have something now, like something to fit in. I think when deciding to come here, I probably could have put off the decision for USD just a little bit longer and interviewed at UCSD. But I did not want to pass up on a sure thing. Mm-hmm. You know, because what if I interviewed at UCSD and then I didn't get it?
Right.
And in retrospect, I know what the parking situation is like there and construction and the commute, the additional 8 miles. I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good.
Yeah.
It's like, oh. The Southwestern is really close to where I live, so maybe I should have. That would have been nice, but I heard about that later. Like,
yeah.
So.
Are you still looking there? Or have you been looking at other places?
Just here and there, just informally to see what's out there. But I think it's a really busy time right now.
Yeah.
And with my classes too, like I just have to wait until I'm in a better frame of mind to really think about it.
How much longer do you have for it's program management certificate?
Or project management.
Project management certificate?
I'll probably be done by the fall.
Okay,
it's
so
only
soon.
5 classes, yeah.
Oh, that's quick. 5 classes, that's it?
At the minimum. You can take more, but I think the extra classes are more geared towards engineers or people who work for the government. I'll need to take that stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. I didn't even think it was 5 classes. That's nothing. Like, to me, it seems so short, but yeah.
It's short. It used to be 6, and I think they revamped the program so that at minimum you only need to take 5, and that's all I got funding approved for. So I'll take my 5.
Well, and so you're getting that is a great benefit because then you're getting your certificate paid for.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So, and it's a good professional development opportunity.
That's so good. Well, it's always so interesting to hear people's stories because everybody's are different, and your journey has been just as unique and yet similar. Like that you started in undergrad, and that played. Your involvement there played a role in even where you went. Next, and I think that's really interesting. I think family has such a influence on our lives, whether or not we recognize it or not. And, being able to hear you talk about that, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. I totally get that. So thank you so much for just being willing to share your story and reflect back on the time that you have had in higher education. I will be really interested to hear how you decide what to do next, because I think it's interesting that you aren't sure and yet sure. You know what you don't want, and then now it's really just maybe reflecting on what it is that you
would like to do.
Want. Yeah.
It's more difficult to arrive at that decision, Grace, what you do want to do versus what you don't want to do. Yeah.
Yeah. Because there's a lot that you could be doing. I think just hearing you talk about teaching and the technology, I think there's something out there. It's just trying to find how,
find it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then of course that position has to open up.
Yeah. Minor detail.
Yeah. Which we already know at USD, positions don't open up very often.
They don't.
Yeah.
And that's part of it. So we'll see. But I would love to stay here if possible.
Yeah. I
just don't know if I'll always be in student affairs. But,
right.
Certainly student affairs is a wonderful division to start in.
That's right.
Yeah. But boy, I tell you, I don't know if I would have liked being an undergrad here. I didn't start to think about my racial identity until college.
Me too.
Yeah, and because also I grew up with a lot of Filipinos, so you don't think of yourself as an other.
And I didn't,
And you didn't.
But I didn't think of myself as another either.
Interesting.
Yeah. For much of my, elementary school life, I just thought I was another little white girl.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I didn't see myself as different until maybe high school. I mean, I did have like an interaction. I remember in elementary school, I brought, I think, adobo and rice to school or something, and I got asked like, "What are you eating?"
Really?
And that's probably the only time I ever felt like, "Oh, that's different. I'm not going to do that anymore." And I just ate school lunches the rest of the time. But yeah.
Yeah.
I always wondered what it would be like to have grown up like around other Filipinos.
It was nice.
Yeah.
Because you could bring weird stuff to lunch and people wouldn't say crap. It'd be like, oh, I had that for dinner last night. Okay, good for you. It's not weird to have rice at all your meals.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's interesting to think I grew up only 15 miles from here, and this feels like a different world sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many white people.
Uh-huh.
And what's interesting to me, a lot of them don't turn left, like, and are not familiar with all the other stuff.
That's
like,
right.
Really? There's so much good food.
I know. Just down the street.
So much diversity. Just turn left.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah. I agree. All right. Well, I probably should let you get back to work. But thank you.